Thank you CuriosityStream for sponsoring me. You can get access to thousands of documentaries and this video ad-free plus exclusives from me using the link in my description. And there's a holiday deal on. Morning everyone, I'm Soph and these are Stephen Newmaster's notes. Supposedly. Stephen Newmaster is a botanist and herbal supplement vigilante. Back in 2013, him and his team did some research using something called DNA barcoding, proving that loads of herbal products and supplements don't contain what they say they do. This led to uproar, not least from Stephen himself. He said in an interview with PBS that these findings piss me off. I go in to buy a product that I believe in, that I care about, that I pay a lot of money for, and you're telling me it's not even in the bottle? Are you kidding me? How righteous. From then onwards, he made it his mission to improve the quality of products, building a career around being the arbiter of ingredient truth. This was actually something he'd cared about even before he got famous for it, having already founded a company for supplement certification. And he founded another one a week after he sent out the research paper. And he founded another group within the uni that he worked for doing the same thing. What a dedicated soul. And it was a great coincidence, really, that all of these groups massively benefited from his work being such a huge success. But it turns out that while Stephen's persona and financial security is based on weeding out fraudulent claims, his career may actually be built on them. In June last year, 8 scientists, including those who did research alongside him, called for an inquiry into his legitimacy. One of them was Paul Hebert, the man sometimes called the father of DNA barcoding being Stephen's magical method of choice. Said inquiry focuses on 3 of Stephen's studies, the infamous supplement scandal, plus one about forests and one about caribou. Within their 43-page allegation letter that they sent to the Uni of Guelph in Canada, where Stephen works, the 8 scientists say the data which underpin the papers are missing, fraudulent or plagiarised. They also say that he recurrently failed to disclose competing financial interests. What? The man who told companies that the best way to prove he's wrong is by paying him? Surely not. These scientists weren't actually the first to notice the errors in his paper though. Shortly after his name-making study came out in 2013, another group publicised an article pointing out all the things that were wrong with it. It included 10 specific points, and probably the most obvious issue pointed out within these 10 points is a basic mathematical inconsistency. In the paper's abstract, which is the bit that sells the paper, it says that 30 out of 44 products showed substitution. That's the same as 68%. However, page 5 of the paper specifically says that substitution occurs in 32% of products. Doesn't add up. But anyway, back to the allegations that came out last year. Stephen obviously denies it all. He hasn't responded to requests for interviews or written questions, but he has sent a defence to the uni, saying, I have never engaged in any unethical activity or academic misconduct. He also says he'd never made money from his network of businesses. So now it's his word against the 8 scientists accusing him, and all the people that wrote that critical article as well. But come on, who do we believe here? Who wouldn't believe this man holding his pills in a petri dish like a proper scientist? Okay, I get it. It's a low blow for me to take the mick out of a posed image, but the thing is, Stephen stands, it gets worse. Suspicions about Stephen extend beyond these 3 experiments and the allegations he's denying, as an investigation by the magazine Science has revealed. So let's take a deeper dive into more of Stephen's shifty behaviour. Right back in 2010, 12 years ago, a student claimed large portions of his uni course material were just straight off Wikipedia. He's also got false qualifications dotted around in various places, or at least he did before Science started sniffing around. His biography on the University of Guelph website had claimed that he had a postdoctoral fellowship in some intense maths, but the place he supposedly studied has no record of him. He'd also claimed he got a big old grant for $198,000 over 5 years, but it was actually just $11,500 over 1 year. It doesn't take intense maths to realise that that does not add up. Anecdotal accounts also say that he'd strut around the Centre for Biodiversity Genomics, or the CBD, at the University of Guelph like he owned the place, hosting tours of the atrium and the sequencing labs like he ran them. He was caught out on this in 2019 when he did a keynote speech at a cannabis expo, and when referencing the centre, he said, "Those 2 buildings are my buildings, and I have 80 scientists working for me." Untrue. They work under Hebert, the DNA barcoding daddy. In that talk, he also mentioned he has links with US regulators and standards boards who say those links don't exist. The group that he set up at the Uni of Guelph also listed strategic partners on their website, including the Food and Drug Administration, who also say those partnerships do not exist. They have no defined relationship in that way. And speaking of false partners, this unchecked shit-chatting came to an end when in 2020, on a radio interview, Stephen said he'd been working on COVID tests at the request requested the CDC months before the COVID-19 pandemic even erupted. That's a shocking thing to say, and Kelsey Priest, a CDC spokesperson, could find no evidence of that existing. But amongst all these lies that the journalistic team at Science dug up, there's one blatant one that really stood out to me. And the thing is that so far I've taken the things that Science said, which is basically that list I've just provided, at face value, which this whole story proves isn't always wise. So I did my own investigation, and by my own, I mean I redid one of theirs to see it for myself. In 2020, Stephen Newmaster did some online training for the Association of Food and Drug Officials about cannabis purity verification, amongst other things. The video of his talk has since been made private, but I didn't let that stop me because you can still access his slides. And here are some of them. Here's a figure about identifying coffee. And here is the exact same figure in someone else's research paper from 8 years earlier. Let's move on to this graph about cannabis, which is an exact copy of this one down to the number labels from a different paper, and it's actually about ginseng, which some of you may remember from my Love Potion video. And this figure on his slides is exactly the same as one from a website that helps people to use R. And far from being about 3 different cannabis strains, it's actually about US arrests. These 3 figures are exact copies, and it is absolutely scandalous plagiarism. And to be honest, I felt so much satisfaction when I saw it for myself, when I saw the complete matches. I felt like flipping Miss Marple, as you can tell from the notes that I wrote in the moment as I spotted them. And I feel like his slides are just terrible as well. It's like he's distracting us as much as possible so we don't notice all the fraud. Like someone who clicks over there and then steals your wallet from the other side. I'm not a thief, that probably wouldn't work, but you get my point. And yeah, throughout all this, he's made his brand one of trustworthiness. In a 2020 promo video for one of his companies, he warned about data manipulation. We could have all the testing in the world, and if that data could be counterfeited or could be changed in any way, doesn't really matter how good the test is. It was only 1 month later that he showed off that ugly plagiarised PowerPoint. How is he being allowed to do this? Well, money talks. If money spoke, what language do you think it would speak? Whatever language the currency is, whatever current you know what I mean. One of the many things Stephen has set up in his time is, as I mentioned, a group within the Uni of Guelph where he works that aims to improve certification and verification for supplements. That group has earned millions from keen supplement suppliers who want to prove they're legit, boosting the uni's finances and prestige in the process. So in 2017, when some scientists were suspicious of Stephen's legitimacy, the then Dean of the uni's College of Biological Sciences called them in for a friendly discussion. That never ends well. Essentially telling them to back off. When one asked the dean if he was sure he was backing the right horse, he replied, apparently, "You're not the one who brought me $1 million deal." An academic deal worth $1 million with no integrity in it. Flash forward 3 years and Ken Thompson finds himself in a similar position. Having worked for Stephen as an undergrad, a few years had passed and Ken started to feel queasy about his old boss. He'd realised the paper he'd made under Newmaster's instructions had impossible claims. He'd never even seen the raw data, and said raw data had never been uploaded anywhere else. When the uni brushed his concerns under the rug, Ken had no choice but to publish them in the Gossip Girl blog of the biology world, Eco Evo Evo Eco. XOXO. EEEE. Which brings us in the story back to now. That blog post caught the eye of others, including DNA barcoding Pappy Hebert, and that led to the accusatory letter signed by 8 different people and the formal inquiry the uni was forced to take. Now, even though they're forced to take an inquiry, that's not to say they followed the rules. Now, I'm sure you already know this, but that inquiry panel should normally have been made up of the Dean of the College of Biological Sciences, the Associate Vice President for Research, and a rep from outside the University of Guelph. But instead, they put together the motley crew of the Dean of the Vet College, a business professor, and, to be fair, a psychologist from outside of the uni, a nearby uni. But seeing as none of these had expertise in the subject they were supposedly meant to be investigating, they were also aided by an unidentified expert witness. Legit. But correct or not, the panel shared their ruling in June of this year, 2022. They found that Stephen Newmaster had engaged in suspicious work, and he displayed a pattern of poor judgment, and he'd failed to apply the standards reasonably expected in research activity in his discipline. But despite many shortcomings in his work, they said there was insufficient evidence to find Newmaster guilty of misconduct in the 3 studies that his accusers had singled out. So there we go. A ruling. We should just accept it. And yet, the thing is that because that letter that forced the investigation was only calling out those 3 papers, all that other dirt that the journos at Science pulled up on him hasn't been scrutinised properly, including the figure vomit of other people's work on those slides, and the fake qualifications, and the false claims on his talks about being the barcoding daddy. He wasn't the barcoding daddy. But even without all that extras, beyond the 3 suspicious papers, I'm sorry, how can you describe someone's work as suspicious and then still give them the green light? Like, nah, this paper's fine to stay up though from this suspicious person. So yeah, sadly, not the most satisfying of results, unless you like him. But for those of us who don't, maybe next time. It's just interesting, isn't it, to remember that science isn't carried out by objective people, because no person can be objective. We have different experiences that shape the way we view the world to start with. But then if you're affected by power or money, which is a fair desire, then things get even more complex. And don't even get me started on the impact of people's egos. But yeah, being a scientist doesn't make you honest. That's where other people's reviews and input and rigorous study comes in. And more than anything, I think what we learn here is when it comes to looking at research results, nuance is important, critique is important, because people can be bullshitters and you need to keep an eye out for them. Bias is everywhere, except here. Obviously. For another completely unbiased analysis of someone and their research, except one that is a lot less PG than this, I recently made a video about a guy who used self-sexual satisfaction as a research method. Just as I found the word eagerness a bit sinister, I'm really finding the italics on this "with my body" quite sinister as well. It's up on Nebula and is going to be part of a series where I talk about studies and experiments and research papers that I cannot believe got published. Now, if you know what Nebula is, still listen up, because it's a bigger discount than normal, so it could be the perfect time to sign up. And if you don't know what Nebula is, then hey, thank you for watching your first Soph's Notes video to the end. I'm proud of you. Nebula is a streaming service, basically, one with tons of YouTube creators on. So I put all of my YouTube videos on there early without any sponsors or ads. And there's loads of exclusive stuff on there too, both from me and all the other creators on there. You can get Nebula for $11.59 for a whole year. It's normally $14.79, which is also a great price, but at this time you also get a holiday discount. But ho ho ho, hold your horses, because you don't just get Nebula for that, you also get access to thousands of documentaries on CuriosityStream. Documentaries like Proof of Concept, hosted by the legend and genuinely lovely person that is Physics Girl. She does experiments, games and has bants. It is great. So to reiterate, you can get a year's access to everything ad-free and exclusive that's on Nebula, plus all the different types of documentaries, which is more than enough to get you through your festive comfort watching on CuriosityStream, both of those for a whole year for less than $12. That's a 42% discount, by the way. To get that deal, go to curiositystream.com/sophsnotes, and if you sign up using my link, I'll know, and I will genuinely really appreciate it, because it helps out my little channel that's kind of chugging along in a big way. Cheers, dears. And that is it for now though, everyone. Do please like this video if you like it, share it if you share it, subscribe if you subscribe it, and media my socials if you want to do that. All that's left to say is thank you so much for watching, have a lovely day, and keep pursuing with filming your video even when it's getting dark outside. We're nearly there. Thank you, my lovely patrons, and welcome to Thomas Kinsey. It is nice to have you here. A continued welcome also goes, of course, to Terry, Drove, Puslius, and Angela. It's nice to have you here still also. Just had to go down and get a parcel, looking like this, and my neighbour was also there. Had a nice chat to him, and he said I suit the bid, so win-win. I'm $1, I'm a pound, je suis un euro. Oh, d'accord, mais aussi, ein Euro, I don't know how you say in German. Personal artisanal genomics lab, like he's doing wood-fired DNA barcoding. Hooray. And it's the end of the video, just as it's the end of the sunlight here. There's a Patreon link, there's a playlist of videos of me, and there's one I've selected for you if you want to watch it. That is it. Adios.